Hey everyone, Nicole Russo and Ashley Mailloux welcoming you to the Oaks Countdown presented by FanDuel, the final countdown, as it were. We are now in race week and our field is set for Friday's Grade 1 $1.5 million Kentucky Oaks, the 151st running of the race for 3-year-old fillies. And let's take a look at that field, full field of 14. Ashley, we haven't really had a chance to talk since the post positions were drawn the other night. Is there anyone you feel fared particularly well or was particularly unlucky in this draw?
Not really. I think we talked about this kind of in our previews in the past, Nicole, where 14 is a little bit more manageable than, say, 20, which you'll see in the Kentucky Derby on Saturday. And I think when you look at, say, early on or quiet side, drawing the bookends here of the starting gate, I think they both are tactical enough that they can work out trips. So I think, there's no one here that I'm like, oh, they have a very, very tough post. I think it's overall quite fair.
Well, I think the connections of a race favorite Good Sheer were, very happy, very relaxed about her post. They think she'll be able to put herself into the race from wherever she is. And looking at her past performances again, you can understand their confidence. She's won her 6 races by more than 42 lengths combined, includes 3 wins at Churchill Downs, includes a win on a sloppy track, and we could see some rain midweek that could impact the track conditions. She has a really good pattern here with her breezes. The race absolutely goes through her. And yet, spoiler alert, I think we both think that she can be beaten.
I think this is going to be the test for her, just like all of the 3-year-old fillies in this field, in the sense that it's a bigger field. It's certainly there in terms of the level of competition, and she's going to get tested. I think the things that she has going for her, besides this beautiful resume to date, is her running style. She can be tactical. She can be 2-3 lengths off of it early and make a move. And, when I look at her past performances, they are impressive. I will say, if you kind of draw a line through the debut, she hasn't taken a huge step forward numbers wise, where we see other fillies have. They've really developed, or they've come into form a little bit sort of in the last, say, month or two. And not that it's a knock against her. It's just something to point out. And she'll have to work out a little bit of a trip. But as I mentioned, I think she's tactical enough that she's going to be in range early, and that benefits her. And especially when you look at this field and you see some deep closers.
Well, let's take a look at our picks, looking at our top 4, and we are both taking and using fillies coming out of the Ashland at Keeneland, which we'll watch in a moment. Cara for me and Take Charge Mady for you. And the reason I am going with Cara is you talk about these fillies developing, and the way she is training this week, she is absolutely thriving. She is turning my head every time she goes by. And we've talked so much this spring about developing your horse and getting your horse to peak at the right time.
And trainer Mark Casse talked about, having to run back pretty quick after the Suncoast to make the schedule will work, with the Ashland being sort of the final prep race on the horizon at the time. And with that, I think, you can draw a little bit of a line through the race at Gulfstream. And when you look at her performance in the Ashland, she was great. You talked about her training, Nicole, since then. This isn't a horse that's been working every 6 or 7 days. This is a horse that Mark Casse has taken a little bit more time with and lets the horse kind of indicate what training schedule they should have. And closer to the 10 days in between works, I think sets her up beautifully. And she worked pretty quick in preparation in one of her last breezes. It was on the quick side. And to me, one of the standouts from a time perspective.
Well, and let's take a step back and take a look at her most recent start in the Ashland. Cara was on the lead. We expect her to be on the lead in the Kentucky Oaks. Mark Casse says they're going to have to come and get her, but you will see your top selection here, Ashley, Take Charge Mady, making a very good inside run at her. And Brian Hernandez said immediately after the race, I was kind of following another filly who started to, kind of not go on a little bit. And I think if I had gotten out sooner, I could have been a threat to the winner.
Yeah, and maybe that is the case. And I think with you looking at kind of the complexion here of the Kentucky Oaks, I think Cara is obviously going to be part of the pace. I don't know how easy it is going to be for her to make the lead and make it sort of in like a lonely sense where she's out there maybe a couple lengths in front, because 5G has speed as well. You look at some others, Tenma likes to be close. Quiet Side likes to be fairly close to it. So with that in mind, I'm kind of more intrigued by some of the closers. And I know Take Charge Mady, the Kenny McPeak barn, and Kenny specifically has talked about her training this week and what's been going on. And we remember she did have to scratch out of a spot on the trail here to the Kentucky Oaks because of a minor issue. They came back, and obviously they're happy with the Ashland performance, but she is what they would call the equivalent of a hangnail. And it's not bad at this point. They expect to make the field. And I think for some people, that's probably a little bit of a yellow flag, Nicole. I have no question or concern really about it, knowing that this has been something that they've dealt with in the past. She was able to fire a big second place finish in the Ashland. And I'm just hoping that pace is quick enough because she has a great turn of foot. And we've done these previews for a couple of weeks, and I think we both have liked her a lot. And I've really tried to stick with her throughout, and curious to see the trip that she can get.
Yeah, and you mentioned that little issue they're dealing with this week, just a little foot abscess. I think you're spot on describing that as a hangnail, which is how Kenny McPeak termed it. And she is continuing to train as they kind of, wrap the foot and soak the foot and treat that. Horses can train soundly through dealing with those things, and she was on the track just this morning. You mentioned another filly that we've both got in our kind of must-uses here, Quiet Side, a very consistent filly. She's coming off a win in the Honeybee that was later flattered by 5G's performance in the Gulfstream Oaks. And then this win that we'll watch in the Fantasy when she was pretty game to the wire against, Simply Joking, who could be another pace horse for the Kentucky Oaks. Quiet Side's consistency is really the thing that makes her a must-use for me.
Absolutely. And I think, looking at this throwdown, this is what you wanted to see in the Fantasy. You mentioned Simply Joking could be part of the pace. We'll see how quick she's actually going to be. But, working against her was the layoff. And I think the thing that's been working for Quiet Side is the way Jenny Ortiz has been able to get this filly to develop. You kind of look at her race in the Martha Washington. She was second best to Take Charge Mady. She did not have the best of trips. And since then, it's been all systems a go. She's been training beautifully. She looks like a very classy filly. And I think in terms of, again, maybe having a blend of different styles here. We've talked about Take Charge Mady being a closer. Quiet Side is obviously more tactical. Cara could be part of the pace. I think when we look at our picks here, we're trying to come up with a little bit of a recipe, if you want to call it, that we're kind of covering all of our bases, because I think the pace here is going to be honest. It could be a tad quick as well.
And that is why when I was looking at my picks, I wound up throwing Ballerina d'Oro into the mix, considering there could be a hot pace up front. I think she's among those, along with Take Charge Mady, who could benefit from that and be picking up some pieces late. So certainly that pace factor is something to take into account.
Absolutely. And, we've talked about Ballerina d'Oro and in one of our more recent sort of week-by-week discussions, and maybe a little bit underrated. And I think part of that has to go with her performance in the Devona Dale, because at that point, I think the top two took a lot of the respect. But it was nice to see her get back to her winning ways last time out. She had to work for it. And I just think in terms of distance, that's not going to be a question for her. I feel like she can run all day long.
Absolutely. And again, we're both using similar fillies in the mix as you look at the picks again here, with favorite Good Cheer, Ashland winner Cara on top, though, for me, 7, 11, 14, 6. Ashland runner up, Take Charge Mady for you, 10, 11, 7, 14. Thank you for joining us this season on the Oaks Countdown. Enjoy race week and best of luck.